Hello, everyone. I hope that you are all doing well and having a wonderful week. This discussion board is in reference to Thomas Jefferson. And when I first started reading and studying and trying to find the information that I wanted to use, I quickly learned that there are many conflicting views on his life. I tried to keep it as factual as possible. I do have some thoughts on a couple of the controversies in his life that I'll get to in a little bit, but I'm going to start at the beginning. He was born April 13th, 1743 in Virginia. His family was a prominent family and did well. Unfortunately, his father died while he was young, but left everything to Jefferson. He immediately began clearing ground and building his future home of Monticello. He loved architecture, which is why I believe he did that. And he also had a chance to use his architect abilities in the building of the University of Virginia. He married Martha Skelton, and they had 6 children, but only 2 of his daughters survived into adulthood. Martha also unfortunately died at the age of 33 in childbirth, and Jefferson never remarried again after that. So later on in life, his influence on our country, he was selected as the delegate to the Second Continental Congress, and he helped to draft the Declaration of Independence, or he wrote it all himself. But there was a committee of 5 people that included John Adams and Benjamin Franklin that helped him to finish it and put it all together. In 1776, he was re-elected to the Virginia House of Delegates, and he wrote the Virginia Statute for Religion. This eventually became the forerunner. This was the forerunner for the First Amendment. Now, in the First Amendment and in this statute, Jefferson believed that we all deserve the choice to worship freely, that we should not be forced to worship all the same and the exact same way, and certainly not have to pay taxes for those things. I found it very interesting that the words separation of church and state do not actually appear in the Constitution. But that's just what it's become. That's what people know the First Amendment to be, is this separation between the government and religion. He became the first Secretary of State to Washington in 1789. In the election of 1796, he unfortunately lost the presidential election, but in 1800, he did tie with Aaron Burr due to a flaw in the electoral system. The tie went to him and he became the president, but the 12th Amendment was created to prevent ties again. There is now a separate vote for the vice president. And he became our 3rd president. In that time, he is famous for the Louisiana Purchase, among other things. Now, there are a couple of controversies in his life that surface repeatedly as I was reading different documentation about him. And the first one is his view on slavery. He did not feel that slavery was right or correct, and that he believed everyone should be allowed their own personal freedoms. But he believed that in order for slavery to fully be abolished and put to an end, that the slaves would then have to go back home, whether it be to Africa or the West Indies. He sort of believed that would bring the most peace in that situation. Just, cutting off slavery would cause quite a bit of turmoil between masters and slaves, and just how Africans were viewed back then, which sort of leads me to an opinion about the situation, because he did himself own several slaves over his lifetime. And as I was reading this and trying to make sense of it, because how could somebody who's against slavery own so many slaves? I just sort of thought that maybe the way he was raised and brought up, it stuck with him, and he maybe had a hard time viewing people as people. And so that may have been sort of an internal struggle for him. Like, he thought everybody should be free, but he was raised by parents and a society that told him these were not necessarily people, they were property. And I think that might have played a big role in his thought process of just sending them out of the country. That's just an opinion. I don't know how true it is. The other controversy that comes up, of course, often is his relationship with Sally Hemings and whether or not he did, in fact, father her children. Oh boy, there's nothing concrete in this story whatsoever. Some people say he was, in fact, the father. Some people say he was not. They've actually done DNA testing to see whether or not it's true, and some say yes, there's a link to his family, some say no. There is not a whole lot of documentation from either side to confirm or deny. So I guess it's just going to have to be a mystery forever. And later on in his life, after his presidency, after all of that, he went back to Monticello and he lived, and he happened to pass away on the nation's 50th anniversary, July 4th, 1826, as well as his friend John Adams happened to die the exact same day. He was buried at Monticello, but unfortunately he had a lot of debt that needed to be paid off, and the property was sold. But in 1954, it was repurchased by a nonprofit organization and reopened to the public, and is able to be visited today. So that is a little bit of Thomas Jefferson in a nutshell, and how he contributed to this country as our third president, and writing the Declaration of Independence and leaving quite a legacy. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and goodbye.